And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Top Dog Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harris Reno, alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley. Dan, I know you're under the weather this week, so I know it's going to be a little bit tougher for you to get through this show, but we're going to grind through it. Got a great show planned for y'all tonight, talking fall camp, previewing what is to come the next 30 days. Dan, we got a month until Georgia football kicks off first Marshall.
I listen, it's right around the corner, buddy. And from the time that last football games, it's that last football game ends to the time the next one starts. It seems like that's forever. But man, some days it feels like it is, but other days it feels like it just flew right by her, doesn't it?
Absolutely, dude. I feel like the last few weeks in particular have flown by. I know I'm mentally preparing myself. These next 4 weeks are going to just drag. I think the last 2 weeks will probably in particular drag up until week 0 kicks off. Dan, with football back, we got 2 hot off the press hot topics for you today. Number 1, both college football related. In honor of the sport we love coming back, what is the one thing to you that signifies football is almost here?
So this may seem a little bit silly, but for me, it was always the Athlon magazine. It would hit the shelves at the grocery store. And I just remember as a kid, is it Lindy's?
Yes.
Yeah, Lindy's Athlon magazine.
Or Lindy's is a separate one, but yes, they're both magazines.
Yeah, well, they would hit the stands, and I always remember because I used to work at Kroger as a kid, and when those would come out, it was right around the corner, and I used to buy those with my tip money from bagging groceries at Kroger, and I used to read them cover to cover. I knew everything about every team, and it was like the holy gospel. So for me, it's whenever those magazines would come out, even to this day, it brings a smile to my face when I'm walking through a grocery store and I just happen to see that out of the corner of my eye. It just brings a smile on my face. I guess it's more, what's the word I'm looking for? Sentimental value, like kind of reflection of my own life. But for me, it was always those magazines.
Damn you, Daniel. That was gonna be my answer.
There's no way.
No, I was legit. I have 2 sitting right beside me. I was like, okay,
you can't see it because you have your stupid blur on.
Yeah, the blur on. But yeah, I have the 2 sitting right beside me. Damn you. I guess the one that really signifies football's coming back. Obviously, these are on the shelves. But I think the big one over the last few years that everyone waits for is Phil Steele. The highly revered Phil Steele. I have not bought a Phil Steele this year. Haven't been able to get to a Barnes and Nobles. Might do it eventually, but at this point, it's kind of like, man, I already got my dose of preview magazines. It's time to move on. Talking season's over. Preview magazine is over. For me, Dan, I'm gonna change it up. I had a second option because I was like, ooh, I don't know where Dan's going with it. But it's the last 7-hour drive for me, buddy. It's the last 7-hour drive for me back from home, back here to Athens. That's what signifies football's coming. When I make that drive, late July, early August, I know in just a few weeks' time, college football is going to be back, and any plans on Saturdays in the fall are going to be watching football. That's kind of what signifies to me that college football is almost here. Second hot topic. Excluding Saturdays and Sundays, which day do you enjoy football the most? This is a part 2, or this is a 2-part question, so we're going to go part 1 first.
So for me, it's always been Monday Night Football, and I know that you and I were talking a little bit, and you brought up a good point where a lot of times on Monday you're going to have fatigue from the weekend of all the football. But for me, and again, maybe this is kind of going back to and as I get older, I get more sentimental about things. But I could just remember being able to stay up late with my dad and watch Monday Night Football. So for me, it's always been Monday Night Football. It's always going to hold a special place in my heart, regardless of what people say about how they don't like the team, like the broadcast teams as much as they did in the past. For me, it's always been Monday Night Football. It's been an institution of my life. And like I said, maybe it's just purely sentimental, but it's just always been Monday Night Football for me.
Yeah, I was debating back and forth. Like we talked about, sometimes by Mondays, you're kind of like, man, it's time to move on. Like, I can't watch another 4-hour football game. Plus, to me, I think the pro game just doesn't mean as much to me. which I think makes it easier to tune out on Monday nights, especially if it's like the Panthers and Bears playing. Sorry for the stray to those two fan bases. But I think football on Thursdays is kind of one, I think on Prime specifically. I think Thursday nights on Prime have kind of reignited my feel for like wanting to watch a Thursday night football game. Because it's like the start of an elite stretch, of a 4-day stretch of where you get football on Thursday night, football on Friday, football all day Saturday, and then you got football again all day Sunday. For me, it's Thursday. Because like you said, sometimes there's fatigue on Mondays, but on Thursday, it's like you're fresh, you're ready to go, ready for a new week. For me, it's Thursdays. Dan, part 2 of this. Is there a day that football does not belong to be on?
All right, so I have a real problem with the college and pro game stepping on Fridays. And maybe it's because we're in the South. I don't know. I talk to my friends who live up north, and high school football doesn't hold a place to them, really. But in my opinion, specifically being from Georgia, I don't need that on Friday night. Friday night is for the kids. It's for the high school guys. It's their opportunity. It's their day to shine. I have a real problem with, and I know I've disagreed with a lot of different people on this because they don't think it matters, but I don't think colleges and high schools or in pros should be playing on Friday nights. I just don't. I think it's a sacred day. That's for the kids. That's my opinion, and I'm pretty passionate about that. Like, I don't need you on Fridays.
I'm with you, and I think that's the one thing about covering Georgia that's nice is Georgia, unless it's Thanksgiving, does not play on Fridays. So, and I'm cool with that. Like, totally cool with that. Makes Fridays a little bit easier. Before you kind of get into the recruiting side of things, Fridays was kind of like your day off. You chill out, relax, go do something else. I'm with you. I don't think college and pro sports should be playing on Fridays. Unless Dan, I think we make some exceptions. Obviously, if it's a holiday weekend like Christmas, go ahead and put it on a Friday. Thanksgiving, go ahead and put it on a Friday. Might as well. I think that's the only exception to this point. Dan, let's dive in to fall camp preview. I know we have it titled questions, but we're also going to dive into kind of some of the things that we want to hear over fall camp. As I've been saying, I think on pretty much every show I've been on the last week, Dan, I've been talking about, hey, it's no longer talking season. Talking season ended the Thursday, the last day of SEC Media Days. Talking season was done and dusted, in the rear view. It's truth-telling season now. Fall camp's where you're going to learn a lot of truths. Which positions are struggling, which positions are shining. For Georgia, it feels like the same positions always shining in fall camp. Then we get to the season, and it's like, oh, I don't know if it was as shining as good as it sounded like it was. So let's start with kind of what we want to hear. Dan, I'll go ahead and kick us off in terms of what we want to hear throughout fall camp. I really want to hear about this cornerback battle. You have Dalen Everett returning, who's supposed to be your shutdown number one guy on the field. Whoever's on Dalen Everett, whoever has Dalen Everett, you're expecting him to be silenced a little bit. He did that down the stretch last year, played phenomenal football for Georgia down the stretch last year in those last few games. I think he just caught a lot of unnecessary slack. Opposite of him is a little bit more of a struggle. I mean, obviously they benched Julian Humphrey in the first half of that Tennessee game after the DPI, and then it was Daniel Harris. And while Daniel Harris has some traits, has the size that you like to see out of a corner on the outside in the SEC, he struggled, and they went after him constantly. And I think that's something we've seen over the last 2 years where this is the first time, and I think Brent Rollins talked about it when he was on here, this is the first time in a while where you don't know who's going to be the next number one corner at Georgia. Like, is Daniel Harris going to take a step and become that guy, or is it the two guys that are battling behind him?
Well, that's what do I want to hear about that position group is I want to hear Ellis Robinson is the All-American that we all think he's supposed to be, because he has everything that you need to be special. He's just got to do it at this point. And I am not going to give up hope. I know some people have kind of turned their nose up for whatever reason, and I don't know. I mean, the kid was, a freshman last year? I mean, it's only his second year. Like, cut him some slack. Keely Ringo didn't have a great first year. He ended up being pretty damn solid for us. Tyson Campbell played his freshman year, but I don't remember him lighting the world on fire as a freshman. And then also keep in mind that And Kirby's secondary is one of the hardest places to get a position. I mean, he coaches the piss out of that position. And then also, Muschamp helped out too. So, I mean, you have quite possibly two of the greatest defensive coaches, not named Nick Saban, in the last 25 years on the same staff coaching the secondary. I mean, and plus, what's the DB coach we got from USC? What's his name?
Dante Williams.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got a lot of guys to impress. Yes, we've all seen that picture. And like you said in the group chat, oh boy, this is going to light the world on fire. I am not giving up hope on Ellis Robinson. I think he can be a special talent. I'm hoping he could be. I don't know where I'm at on him as far as I don't know if it's more hope now or belief. I just want it to happen.
Yeah, I think after watching the cornerbacks compete in the spring at G-Day, I think that was a position, although Georgia gave up a lot of yardage through the air, I don't think it's anything to be concerned about because, I mean, what everybody knows, you're not going to run the ball in the spring game very much. I think Georgia ran it maybe 20 times combined, and that's with maybe 10 backs, 10 people taking carries that day. But Georgia threw it, God, probably 70 times that football game. Ellis Robinson made some plays. Daniel Harris had a pick. DeMello Jones had a play. And really, the star of the show for that day was the offense and particularly the receivers. Georgia had 3 or 4 guys on the outside that could go up and go get the football, which is something they did not have last year. But, Dan, I'm with you. I think Ellis Robinson – I think it's both. I think you saw him in spurts last year, specifically the Mississippi State game. I know there was that one play where he flipped, got his head around, and swatted the ball that everyone's like, oh, like, we need that. Georgia needs that because they hadn't had that to that point. I think it's hope, and I think it's the combination of that, and I think from the tidbits that you've seen, he's going to get on the field. And I think same thing goes with DeMello Jones. DeMello Jones was a guy that got a lot more reps in the spring. He only played in 6 games last year, and I don't know how many of those games where he actually played meaningful snaps as a cornerback for Georgia outside of the garbage time games for Tennessee Tech, UMass. I don't know how much actual cornerback reps he's gotten. This was a kid, Dan, coming out of high school that pretty much did everything for his high school football team. Played quarterback, played running back. Like, this guy was all over the field for his high school team. So not exactly the most polished corner, like didn't get to dedicate his time to playing the position. And now he's come to Georgia and he's getting that experienced position, very much like Todd Robinson. Todd Robinson from this past freshman class did everything over there at Valdosta, comes to Georgia, and now he gets to focus primarily being on a DB. I'm with you. Really, really, really need to hear good things about the corners, and specifically Ellis Robinson. Dan, I said it on the Peach State Power Hour back this past Sunday. I think Ellis Robinson is going to be your starting outside corner opposite Dalen Everett probably by the last 6 games. That's just my expectation. And that's kind of been the trend over the last few years. When you have a former 5-star prospect that's getting close to the veteran, he usually beats him out midseason. Like, he doesn't get the job at the beginning of the year. He usually ends up beating him out. I expect Ellis Robinson will be the starter by those final 6 games, and more than likely he'll probably be playing well before then. Dan, for you, I mean, what's your – I was just touched on that. Yeah.
I was just going to say that the next thing, aside from the DBs defensively, the next thing that I want to hear is that our defensive line is absolutely destroying the practice. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear that the guys who are rotating on that defensive line are making it so hard for the offense to get into a rhythm because they keep messing everything up. That's what we had in 21 and 22 with our defensive line. And I think it's one of those things that kind of goes under the radar. I mean, listen, we talk about it. A lot of the other shows talk about defensive line, but I think in common conversations, a defensive line is not one of the topics that comes up a lot of times, but a really good defensive line can absolutely create havoc and then make everybody else play better. Imagine how good that secondary is going to look if the entire offense is struggling to do anything because of a disruptive defensive line. So for me, this might even be number one, Harrison. I mean, you bring up a great point with the DBs, and I don't disagree with you, but I think my number one I want to hear out of camp is that the defensive line is just absolutely being a menace.
And I think that starts with a lot of those newcomers or young faces. I mean, you're talking to Jordan Hall, you're talking an Xavier McLeod, you're talking an Elo Medozi, a Gabe Harris, a Quintavious Johnson. I mean, those are the guys that Georgia's looking to in terms of they're going to have to lead the front. Those are going to have to be the guys that lead the front line and go make the plays because you don't have a Jalen Walker. You don't have a Michael Williams. You don't have a Tyrion Dawkins. You don't have a Nazir Stackhouse. You don't even have a Warren Brinson. There's a lot of snaps that left that room, and there's not a ton of snaps returning. I don't think any of those guys, other than Kristen Miller, played over 700 snaps last year for Georgia. That's a problem. That is a huge problem. Gabe Harris is the most experienced edge guy that Georgia has in the room that returned, and he probably didn't play very, very many snaps in meaningful football games. I know he was a sub-package guy, would get in here and there, but when you go look at his snap counts, I would bet he probably didn't get more than maybe 20, 30 snaps in some of those marquee football games because the room was just too deep back then. I'm with you, Dan, and I guess to follow up on your point in terms of the defensive line, if you hear the defensive line's causing havoc and dominating, is that a warning sign about the offensive line for you? Is it a mixture of good on good, defensive line's winning, or are you like, oh shit, offensive line's getting his ass whooped?
No, I think this offensive line is going to be very good. So I think, to me, the way I view that is if this defensive line is causing havoc at practice, then it's going to be really damn good. I mean, because I think our offensive line is pretty good. I think like we've discussed it on the show before. I think maybe name recognition wise and on paper talent wise, this offensive line, and please understand what I'm saying, just perception may not be as talented as last year's offensive line, but I think they're going to be more productive. And I think we've talked about that in the past. I think we talked about that, if I'm not mistaken, with Kobe last week. And you know what? I think even when your guy came on our show the other night, he even kind of mentioned that this offensive line has a chance to be even better. So I think if our defensive line is causing havoc, knowing how I feel about that, I think it speaks volumes to how good this defensive line could be. Now, we may not hear that, and that may not come to pass, but that's what I'm wanting to hear. And that's what we're talking about is what do we want to hear?
Yeah. For me, in terms of what's next, it's the running back room. I mean, we talk about the offensive line. We talked about the struggles in the run game, 102nd in rushing. Dan, they haven't run the ball that bad in God knows how long. They haven't done it under Kirby. I know that for sure. I think it goes back to the mid 2000s that they ran the ball. They finished that low in rushing. Georgia as a program. Georgia, for the running backs, you have Nate Frazier returning. You have Cash Jones. I don't expect Cash Jones will be a major contributor in terms of actually getting carries. He had more receptions last year than he did carries. If that tells you kind of where Georgia sees him and how they fit into how he fit into their plans, Georgia needs to find a second guy at running back, and you probably need 3 or 4 on the high end, and maybe Cash fits into there. Cash could be your, one of those 3 or 4. Georgia needs to find a guy that can play behind Nate, give him, spell him and let him go, take a breather. You're hoping it's Josh McCray, but long-term, you need a Roderick Robinson. You need a Chauncey Bowens. You need a Bo Walker. Somebody has to step up. That room's been decimated by injuries over the last few years. I want to hear about the running back room. It's been quite a while, Dan, since we heard a lot about the running back room in fall camp. It feels like receivers always taking the attention because for so long, that was kind of like the position where Georgia's not playing up to its potential or Georgia's not at that level at receiver like its other contenders. For me, it's the running back. Like, gotta see it.
I think you bring up a great point. And I think one of the things that play into your point is that it was just taken for granted that Georgia was going to have an amazing running back room. So rooms like the wide receiver room, rooms like the quarterback room, those things warranted a little bit more of attention because you didn't exactly know for sure exactly how those things were going to play out, those rotations, the production, all those different things. I think it's just one of those things as a Georgia fan. I mean, for myself, if you go all the way back to from when I was born in 1979, go all the way up. I mean, it's just been like, I won't go hyperbole too much, but I mean, you have Hall of Famers littered in there, right? Guys who were the greatest in the game. Just Georgia has just been blessed with just an abundance of great running backs. And this isn't to crap on anybody because I think if you come to Georgia and play running back, you're pretty damn good. I think it speaks volumes. But we just haven't had that special guy in a couple years, and it's not been long, right? I mean, we just go back a couple years to DeAndre Swift. I mean, he was pretty special, and then you had Chubb and Michelle and Gurley. I mean, so like the list goes on and on. But I think, to your point, it's one of those things that doesn't get talked about a lot because I think it was just assumed that they're going to be great. Now that all being said, I think Nate Frazier's pretty damn good. I think he has a chance to be really, really good. I hate, and I'm happy for him, but I hate that we don't get one more year of. I just went blank. Help me.
Trevor Etienne?
Yes, yeah, ETN. So I wish we had one more year of him because I saw some really good things out of him last year. Saw some really tough runs. I mean, both of the Texas games, he put us on his back. You can have an opinion on him one way or another, but if you go watch either one of those Texas games, and you come away with any other take than Trevor, then he just put it on the line for those games. I don't know what game you were watching because he did everything we needed him to do in those games, and not to say that Nate can't do that and Nate won't do that. I wish we could have got one more year of him, but then again, maybe passing the torch to just for this year to Frazier and having him get those lead back carries. There's other backs too, though. If you go through all the years with our backs, there's some backs that get better as the carries build up. It's very difficult. And, I've talked to other running backs that, I played with or friends or hell, even when we talked to Cam, when we had him on our show, just a lot of running backs just like to build carries and they feel like they can get better as the game goes on. And there are a lot of I do have excitement for this running back room. And maybe with Frazier getting a larger share of carries, we might get to see something really special that we haven't seen in a couple of years.
Yeah, I was looking back, just spending the last few weeks going back and watching old games. And they're not really old because it's been within the last few years. The one thing that I think just Georgia team has a potential to have in the running back room that it hasn't had in a little bit is you have a true change of pace back. Like Etienne and Frazier are both very similar runners in terms of style. Both don't need to, both don't both don't excel in power. They're much more, hey, we're going to make you miss. We're going to win with our speed. I think more so Frazier with speed. Etienne's going to beat you with his agility, his ability to make you miss in the open field. I think Georgia has the potential to have a true power back, a true goal line back in Josh McCray. Coming over from Illinois, I know Kirby Smart, the goal line was something he talked about. I believe it was back in the spring, back in March in the SEC coaches meetings, talked about Josh McCray a little bit. Excited to see what he can do behind a Georgia offensive line, which we all expect is going to get back to the standard in terms of being able to run the football and move people. And then behind him, I think the one guy that could make this room that much better that we have not seen much of, but when we do, he makes a difference is Roderick Robinson. I have not seen a football player yet want to tackle Roderick Robinson. When he's on the field, he does not look fun to play against. And I hope we get to see him this year. Injuries have been a big issue with him down the stretch the last few years. If he can stay healthy, it's just going to make that running back room all the much better. Now, I think this is where we can transition into the questions aspect of this show and in fall camp. Dan, I'm going to start it off here because here's my question. And it's not so much a question about position, but it's just a question about a trend. I went back and I looked at the rushing defense rankings and the scoring defense rankings for Georgia over the last since Kirby Smart got here via CFPstat.com. Georgia ranked 36th in the rushing last year. They gave it up around about 124 yards a game in rushing. That was the lowest total they finished in rushing since 2016 at 36th. They gave up 143. After that, if you go back and you look up the numbers, they finished 20th in 17, 31st in 18. They were by no means elite at stopping their run. Then after that 18 season, something changed. And I was actually watching the coaches clinic for it. Kirby Smart did a coaches clinic after the 2020 season about how they defend the run. And here's their rankings. First, second, first. Then they drop off the 20th, then the 36th. My question, and I was asking somebody about this last night, I wonder what the next evolution is going to be. Because we've already seen it. It's not in their core DNA to stand pat and to do something that's not working. Obviously, teams find a way to run the football on them more effectively. I think quarterback run has a lot to do with it. And something tells me that's going to be something they have to work on. I think we obviously know that. Can Georgia get back to playing Georgia football, which is stopping the run and making tackles in the open field, something they did not do consistently game to game?
You said teams found a way to run on Georgia. It's accurate because Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter left. I mean, you had two of the greatest interior defensive linemen in probably the last 30 years at the University of Georgia. They were a very large reason why Georgia was number one in run defense, because there you had two massive, ultra talented defensive linemen stopping the run. So you said, what is going to be this next evolution? Well, I think they've been trying very hard to try to find people to replicate that pass rush from the inside, or the run stuffing from that defensive line. And we've heard some really good things about Elijah Griffin and some of these other guys that are coming in. But you also kind of need guys who have been here to step up and become the player that they're supposed to be. And Kirby, in one of his press conferences, I can't remember if it was this year or last year, they all kind of run together at this point. But he was basically saying it takes 3 years to be able to play in this defense. He didn't really go on to say that it takes 3 years to play offense, but he kind of said that it takes 3 years to really be proficient at this defense, or 2 minimum, right? But he was talking about now he's got to get guys ready to play sooner than in the years past that they would be ready to play. So if you look at guys like Jordan Hall, for example, Xavier McLeod, like a lot of these guys, we need them to take that next step to be where they're at. Now, another part of that too is you got to be better at tackling. Part of that rushing, the reason that it's more yardage and we're not as high as, if you go back to last year, there were plenty of opportunities where our first contact was in an acceptable range. I'm not going to say they were on the backfield because that's not fair. It's not true. But, within the first 5 yards or the 3 yards of the line of scrimmage, we were making contact, right? And he didn't make the tackle. I know it was brought up on our show. I know it was brought up on a lot of other shows. The tackling last year wasn't as good as you would expect for a Kirby Smart's defense. But also, as Kirby points out, it's a lot harder to practice and tackle now. Your rosters are not as deep as they used to be. You're a little bit more nervous about getting guys hurt at practice, so you kind of cut back a little bit. And he's mentioned on his interviews and stuff of that fine line, that balance between practicing really hard to be good in the games, but then also keeping your roster healthy, because it's a grind. And we know that, and everybody knows that. If you watch SEC football, it's a grind. It's week in and week out. You're playing very physical, talented players. You got to stay healthy. So what is the next evolution? The next evolution is you just need some of these younger guys that we recruited to play well to actually play well. And you'll be fine. I mean, I know where your brain is going, because you're like Mr. Analytics. You're over there going, oh, no, 30. We need to run this stack, or we need to do this. Like you want to know schematically how they can change it. I don't think they have to really change very much schematically. I think they just have to perform.
Yeah, I think they got to find the guys. I ultimately think that's it. I mean, if you look at it, you can kind of pinpoint kind of the positions where there's been drop off. It's not only on the interior, it's also been on the edge. I mean, you had Nolan Smith, one of the best edge setting defenders that Georgia's had, and now he's one of the best edge setting defenders in the league, in the National Football League. That guy's not there anymore. And yes, you have a Jalen Walker. Yes, you have a Michael Williams. Those guys are good. Those guys are talented. But you can't replicate a Nolan Smith. I think there's been a drop off there. And then there's been a little drop off, obviously, like you said, on the interior. You don't have somebody constantly eating up double teams quite as effectively as a Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter. Dan, in terms of other questions I have, again, I think this is until they prove it, and I'm not saying 1,000 yards, but just until they prove it. I'm going to have to put every time there's attrition at this position, it's going to have to make the list. Does Georgia have difference makers out wide? They added Zachariah Branch. They added Noah Thomas to the portal. I really like Zachariah Branch. He hasn't really put it all together as a receiver yet. Same thing with Noah Thomas. Noah Thomas was coming off a good year over there at Texas A&M. How does he translate? Can he go do that again here at Georgia? Do they have difference makers? I'm still in a wait and see approach because it's like every year, Dan, we hear this is the year Georgia finally has the horses on the outside. And outside of the years with Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, and I think 21, maybe 22 are the best receiver room they've ever had. And especially 21. I mean, you go look at that roster, that room was loaded.
Well, listen, I don't know how real life plays out, but I could tell you in 2026 NCAA, Zachariah Branch is a beast, and Noah Thomas is a beast, and so is Landon Humphreys. But so with Landon Humphreys, you got to go ahead and put him in at wide receiver 3. You have to sub him in. For some reason, they have him down like a wide receiver 5, which is crazy work. But those 3 guys will absolutely destroy people, so much so that my son will not let me play with Georgia anymore. So I'm teasing, obviously not really, but I think other people think that has a. I think other people think that this group has a chance to be special. You know, I hear what you say about Zachariah Branch hasn't put it together. Who was Zachariah Branch's quarterback last year at USC?
Jaden Mayava, I believe is how you say his name.
And what did he have around him? It's the reason I'm bringing that, and I'm not trying to shit on USC. I mean, I think USC is a great program, blah, 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 all those things. But my point is he's coming into a room where he has support. You can't just focus on him, but he has elite traits. And yeah, I think one of the things that we both learned over the years is that to be special at Georgia, you have to do more than one thing good. And that's just something that I just think if you paid attention to the program, you got to do more than one thing. You can't just do one thing. And for Zachariah Branch, he does do more than one thing. The other thing that he does is he's an elite return specialist. Now, as long as Kirby and his staff is willing to give him that opportunity to do that and being wide receiver 1, I don't know how excited he is going to be about doing that, but I think that's really where he has an opportunity to showcase those elite traits. But I think this wide receiver room is going to be good. I don't think I think those drops that we saw last year were an aberration. I don't think that's an indication of things to come. I think it was just like something that happened. I don't see that carrying over.
I'm going to piggyback off of that point, and we're going to piggyback off of what Robert just said. Yeah, I mean, with Branch, obviously, there's explosive. That's an explosive athlete. I mean, you see it on special teams. Colby Young, that's him and Noah Thomas, I believe, are the X factors to this offense. They have to have an X receiver. They have to have somebody who can go out there and win consistently. When they had Colby Young, they did. And he won pretty consistently. Outside of a few plays versus Alabama where he didn't go up and get the football, one of them ended up being that game-ending pick. Colby Young won on the outside. I do like the makeup, Dan. I like the makeup of the receiving room. I think you got your 2 guys on the outside that can go out there and win in terms of being physical and just having the catch radius in terms of Colby and Noah Thomas. Brent Rollins is warning everybody that Noah Thomas is probably a little bit faster than people give him credit for. Then you have somebody who could be a potential take the top off the defense, or heck, maybe a little yards after the catch guy in Zachariah Branch. And you need that. You need a good mixture. You need a mix of 50-50 guys, speed guys, and then yak guys. Maybe Zachariah Branch can be that yak guy for Georgia. I do like the mixture here.
I will listen. I will take 5 seconds to play your reindeer games, and I will tell you that the candy runts is a borderline 0. That is a horrible candy. I mean, if you're going to go a fruity candy, go Skittles or go Mike and Ike's. What are you doing with runts, my guy? I mean, there's bananas in there. Come on. That's not elite. Robert, you're better than that. All right. I'm sorry, guys. We are the show of the community, and if you come in here with some silly stuff like that, I am going to call you out. Do not tell me about runts.
What the hell is candy runts?
It's
Never mind. We'll talk about it off camera. We'll
all
talk about
right.
it off camera. We're gonna get
It's
derailed.
gross.
Yeah, we'll get derailed. What were we talking about? Receivers? Yeah, receivers.
Yeah. Now we're moving on to a different group.
Yep. Dan, you want to go next? You got a point to get next? I got my second and final one, but if you got one, I'm gonna let you go next.
Questions.
Yeah.
Listen, I think a general question is the production out of the quarterback. And this isn't like a DEFCON level 5 or anything like that. It's just a general question that I don't think anybody has an answer to. People can say they have an idea, but I'm not really 100% sure. So I think Gunner can do a really good job. I hope he stays healthy. We know he has the tendency to put his head down a little bit, which is great because he's a tough guy. But I think it's fair just to say you don't really know about the quarterback room. I think he has a chance to be good. I think that quarterback room has a chance to be extremely productive. I think he's surrounded by enough to be really good. You know, we could get a Stetson Bennett out of him where he just goes nuts, and we're in the national championship. I can't definitively say one way or another exactly what we're going to get. So that's just a question. I'm not like I said, it's not DEFCON final. I'm not saying that a quarterback room can't get the job done. I promise I'm not saying that. It's just a general question. Just I don't feel like I wouldn't bet my house on it. You know what I mean? Is
Yeah.
that fair?
No, that's completely fair because mentally I'm sitting here trying because like you said, you can get the ultimate gamer, you can get just the absolute underdog, and you can get Stetson Bennett, somebody who's going to perform in the clutch, and it's going to go take you all the way. You know, is that kind of what we're getting here in terms of Gunnar Stockton? An absolute gamer, someone who might not be the most physically impressive, the most NFL treatsy guy that you've ever seen, or I guess to put it in terms of quarterbacks we've seen at Georgia and Kirby Smart, where is the balance here? Are we getting a Stetson Bennett, which is a really, really high bar, which I don't think that's what's happening? Are you getting a Carson Beck, a tier below Stetson Bennett, somebody who can drive the bus? 23 Carson Beck. Or are we going back to kind of Jake Fromm? Kind of the bus driver, keep the wheels on, don't let us get derailed. You know what I mean? That's kind of my question, Dan. What's the offense look like? Are we going to rank? Is Georgia going to rank 102nd in rushing? Because if that's the case, I'm not feeling too hot about it. You know, I don't know if Georgia has the quarterback on the roster to rank 102nd in rushing and still end 10-2, 11-2, whatever it was, and go into the playoffs with a chance to go play longer into January.
Well, I would say this, Harrison. The one thing that I am confident about is Gunner has more arm talent than Jake Fromm did. All the other things are negotiable, and I will listen to any argument or whatever. But I've seen Gunner throw in person 5 times, 5 times, and arm talent is, or like that ball coming out of his hand is not something I'll ever question. Like he toast the piss out of it.
Did you see that highlight video they dropped? Rivals dropped of him.
No.
Hold on.
I told you I don't get that stuff anymore. Like they forgot my user password when they did the merge.
No. This was on Twitter. Sir, ramble on for a little bit about my last question, which was
No, we'll just do it after the show. Don't worry about it. Go ahead. Tell me your last question.
Last question, Dan, and this is really it for me for the whole show in terms of everything. It's just consistency. Can George get back to having an identity, like knowing week to week, this is the team we're going to see? I'm not saying week to week we're never going to win. Like I'm not saying that. I'm just saying week to week, can you count on Georgia being able to do what Georgia's historically done? Stop the run and run the football. Last year, that was not it. You could not count on that week to week. Either of them. Georgia really didn't run the ball well in many games. If you go back and look at it. Now, granted, some of the struggles in the run game was because they had to kind of go away from it because you're down. and you're trailing, you have to throw it to get back in to win it. And then in terms of stopping the run, like we talked about, teams found a way to run on Georgia. But Dan, that's my question. Can they be consistent? Can they be more flatline and less up and down? Because last year it was very much up and down. I mean, just think about it. 2 years ago, like we didn't feel like Georgia was the most like flatline team in terms of consistent performance. There were some times where you're like, okay, this team gets really, really high. But even when it got a little low, it wasn't very low. Last year, this past season, you felt like the lows were low in relative terms to where they have been in the past. Can Georgia just get back to that? Because, Dan, I don't know about you, but on a week-to-week basis, I couldn't tell you with 100%. I wouldn't want to bet the house on Georgia being able to do anything well week to week because you just didn't know.
And my memory's not as good as it always was, but the second year, 2022, sorry, the second year of the we went undefeated, won the national championship, beat TCU. If you go back and look at that schedule, we took care of business, but even though we took care of business, like I think there's like one or two close games. You and I have gone back and looked at it, but you never felt like you got the best out of Georgia. It was just kind of like they were bored, right? So I think in hindsight, when you go back and you look at it, you're like, wow, Georgia really wasn't threatened that year by many people. But in the moment while we were watching it, it felt like this. It felt like this, right? And last year obviously had ups and downs. But I think it's going to be very difficult for any college team under the new world that we're living in to be extremely consistent across the board. You might see a team be extremely consistent maybe once in a while. I think it's just going to be difficult. Yeah, I mean, like we beat people pretty good. But if you remember, there were times where, was it the Missouri game? And
they trailed that game up until the fourth quarter, I believe.
You have to make it bigger, dude. My eyes are not as good as you think.
Well, there we go. There we go.
Like that Kentucky game, I remember, like the world was about to end. I remember watching that game at Wild Wings after working all day at the field. And like people were losing their minds. Now, granted, they'd been at that bar drinking all day long. That was the rain game, was it not? Wasn't it raining that game?
That was the like 20-mile-per-hour wind game.
Okay, well, I just remember everybody getting pissed. But
yeah,
that's neither here nor there. I think in today's culture, with the way NIL has changed rosters, the way transfer portals change rosters, I think it's just going to be hard to be extremely consistent across the board. I mean, it's easy to be consistently bad, but I'm talking about consistently good. I mean, because if you think about it, that's a culture that you're establishing, and you have to have every single player bought in and ready to go. And I think Georgia right now, and we've brought this up in the past. If you remember Nick Saban, when he was at Alabama, he said one of the hardest things he had to do was convince the players coming in that you are at a program that won a national title, but you did not win the national title. You haven't done anything because, they were in the program and they weren't as hungry as they once were. And I vividly remember him just talking about that. And, they always say that everything Saban said through the media was to his team, right? Everything had a purpose. It was like a dart. When he said something to the media, that was a dart to one of his players on his team. Kirby does the same thing. I mean, he obviously working for a guy like Nick as long as he did. And a lot of other guys have left him and tried to go on to be not everybody could replicate it. But I think what Kirby has done here at Georgia is just amazing. I give him so much credit for being able to absorb all of that and then put it into practice and then find a way to make it yours, right? I don't think it's fair because I know some people, like a lot of the Alabama fans, that they love to say that, he's just trying to beat Nick Saban. And like, well, first of all, why wouldn't you want to be? He's the greatest ever. You'd be dumb not to. But to get it to work is difficult. And I got,
Bless you, sir. The whole
yeah,
time sneeze button.
yeah. So anyway, I know that was your final point of the show, but I think it was a really good one. But I just think it's going to be difficult for a team to be extremely consistent the way that we want them to be. I mean, I hope so. I mean, it'd be great, right? It'd be super fantastic.
What would there
I
be
mean,
left to talk about, though?
I don't know, dude. We did this show for almost 2 years without a loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It was hard to get Dan out of bed the first time they did lose.
no, I think I was ready to come on. I think I was pissed, right?
You were pissed? Maybe you were. Maybe you were. That show was one of our best shows. That I do remember that.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, Dan, you talked about Saban using the media to talk to his players. I was actually, I think, the first thing that came to mind in terms of Kirby doing that was after the Peach Bowl, his interview. He called out Stetson Bennett after that game, like in the media, said, "Hey, our quarterback did not play well up until the fourth quarter." And I believe there's an interview sometime after the national championship game where Bennett played spectacular. Bennett's like, "Yeah, kind of hurt me to hear my coach talking about that, but it was like he was challenging me, and it's like I had to come out and show him wrong." So it happens. Great coaches do it.
You know what is going to be the greatest interview of all time?
What was that?
Stetson Bennett in 20 years.
Stetson Bennett in 20 years on the Top They'll Talk podcast with a retired Dan, and God knows where I'm going to be.
No, I mean, just think about that. Like when playing in the NFL or whatever is no longer an option, he doesn't have to worry about anything, and he has a chance to sit down with somebody and give a candid interview of everything.
Mm-hmm. Write a damn book, Stetson.
Yeah, you have to. First of all, they made a Kurt Warner movie, and I've tried to go back and watch it. I think it's called The American Underdog, and I've watched it twice now. Yes, I mean, like it's a good story, but like, it just felt like a cheesy Hallmark movie. They got Anna Paquin in it. Like they got like a real actress to play his wife. The guy who plays Kurt Warner is okay, I guess, but like. And then, like that story about the Clemson kid who had like his little brother living in his room and they trying to hide out or whatever
on Disney Plus. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's called Safety. I hope that my point is when they make the Stetson Bennett movie, I hope they go all out and like get it make it a real production. I hope like Paramount does it or something, or like MGM Studios. Like I want like a real studio to do it. I don't want Angel Films making it. Like, come on, like. Somebody go like Disney. If you're going to do it, Disney, Avengers style, okay? Like put the money into it. I don't want a cheap, cheesy ass because that'd be terrible.
Dan wants a Rudy.
Listen,
hey, I better end the show before Dan starts. I better stop it. No, I better stop talking about Rudy because you're going to go on your rant about how fake that movie was.
No, it's still one of the. Listen, I've watched that movie. If I said 100 times, that's not hyperbole.
Not hyperbole.
I've watched Rudy 100 times.
There you go. He's also watched Game of Thrones in like a week 100 times. Anyways, folks, that's going to do it all for episode 154 of the Top They'll Talk podcast. That's Dan Kiley. I'm Harrison Reno.
That's Harrison Reno, who's still not watched The Departed.
It's back for another week, another mention. Maybe next week we'll get it done. Anyways, folks, Kobe Pierce was not able to be with us tonight. He will be back with us hopefully next week. Make sure to follow him at Twitter at Kobe Pierce down there in the little banner at the bottom. Follow Dan at Dan Kiley3. I'm at Harrison Reno. We'll see you back next Wednesday at 7:30, same time, same place. Dan, we're going to have some notes about fall camp, hopefully by then. I will see an open practice period tomorrow, so we will see what bodies have looked noticeably different. That's always an easy scout because it's really when they're just doing yoga and stretching, there's really not much else to see. But anyways, we'll be back next Wednesday.
Listen, hey, our numbers were good tonight, guys. We really appreciate you finding our show tonight. I don't know how you found us tonight, but if you could like, subscribe, follow. We're from here on out. We're going to be here every Wednesday, 7:30, and then once the season gets kicking up, we're going to do a reaction show to the games Sunday night. Time is still TBA because Mr. Big Shot over here is doing like 10 different podcasts now. But we're going to do a reaction show on Sunday night. So we'll be coming back to the 2 shows a week. And you guys seem to like that. But
It
like
was
I said,
fun.
hey, listen, our numbers were really good tonight. I appreciate every single one of you. If you disagree with us or if you have an opinion, we'd love for you guys to chime in. We are a show of the fans. We love interaction. So if you want to get your opinion heard, drop it in.
We love reaction as long as it's Miami fans getting on Dan's ass. My man Dan was having it that night from all sides. That was wild. Anyways, folks, like Dan said, like, subscribe, rate, review. We'll see you back next week.